Let's hear what some of the people have to say about James Braid.
I'm John Duncan. I'm Secretary-Manager of Royal DORNOCH Golf Club. We've had a wonderful evening and an afternoon's golf with the James Braid Society. The Royal DORNOCH is very happy to host this competition. Scotland as a whole, we are proud to being the home of golf. We could not really honour this claim if we do not revere the names of the great old characters in Scottish golf, such as James Braid and Tom Morris, who had a hand in designing our course. James Braid, I played many of his courses. They are always fun to play. You've got to admire the way he makes the maximum use of the minimum amount of land. And like Morris and Donald Ross, subsequently, he finds a way of giving people options when they're playing golf. You can't just play them mechanically. It challenges the golfer's thought processes as well as his technical skills.
He obviously, in his time, was immensely influential. People believed that he was the preeminent designer of golf courses. He was involved in a small way, in a big way, in an intermediate way, in so many golf courses in the United Kingdom that if I had known him, I would have looked up to him without doubt.
Well, it is said in the profession of golf design that one's personality comes out in the courses you create. And in Braid's case, he was a marvellous man, a friendly man with a nice sense of humour and immaculate manners. And really, that's come out in his courses. They're all full of good fun. And I think that's perhaps what stamps the Braid courses as worth finding and following and playing on. At least that's how I find it.
Well, I have to agree with Peter, and I think you will too when you find yourself on a James Braid course. To learn more about the man and his life, we leave Scotland and head to London. Here we soak up its colorful history and its proud traditions. And to learn more about one of golf's great ambassadors, we head to Surrey, to Walton Heath. It's here we learn about the great man of golf, history, and life, James Braid.
There's much more on Golfing Country. We'll be right back.
James Braid heard about the new club at Walton Heath, and he applied for the professional's job. The course, with its fast-running fairways and greens, would resemble the links of his native Fife, Scotland, more than anything he had ever experienced around London. The relationship between James Braid and Walton Heath lasted 46 years. He lived here, he worked here, and I'm sure he's still looking down over Walton Heath. The club has hosted many tour events, and in 1981 a star-studded Ryder Cup. The Europeans with Longer, Torrance, Lyle, Oosterhuis, Jacobs, and a young rising star, Nick Faldo. The American team boasted stars like Trevino, Crenshaw, Floyd, Watson, Irwin, Nicklaus, and Johnny Miller. The finest golfers in the world have played here at Walton Heath, but so have members of the Parliament, House of Lords, and even the royal family. To learn more about James Braid and Walton Heath, we meet with one of its members and its historian, Philip Truitt.
Hello, my name's Philip Truitt. Welcome to Walton Heath. I've been a member of Walton Heath for many, many years, and I have been the club archivist for almost as many years, and we have a particular interest in the life and times of James Braid. In 1908, when James Braid won the championship at Prestwick that year, with a record score of 291, he broke the record by 9 shots. The members of Walton Heath subscribed and made a presentation to him, which included this illuminated address. The significance of the 1910 win was that this was the Jubilee, it was the 50th anniversary of the first playing of the Open Championship at Prestwick in 1860. So a print was commemorated not only to commemorate the the jubilee of the golfing championship, but also Braid's historic 5th win, and the various players winning the championship up until that time are depicted here, and here also are the replicas of his 5 Open Championship medals. And the most interesting thing of all, and this is between 1901 and 1910, is that his average score over those 20 rounds was 4 1/5 of a shot, so 4.2 over those rounds of golf, so just very slightly over level 4s. And if one thinks of what the golf courses were like in that period, from 1901 to 1910, the equipment that he was using, and particularly the ball that he was using, it was perhaps quite the most astonishing feat. One of our proudest claims to fame here at Walton Heath is that we have had our own triumvirate. Triumvirate, you'll remember, were Varden, Braid and Taylor, but we have our own triumvirate here. We have perhaps one of the greatest golfers of all time, James Braid, who was professional here from 2004 until he died in 1950. And then perhaps we have one of the greatest club makers. He took over from Braid. He came here soon after Braid's death in 1950 and was here until 1977. And he retired and actually carried on as being our club maker. But in 1977, we had Ken MACPHERSON arrive, and he is still here today. And it's generally held throughout the golfing world that Ken MACPHERSON is the ultimate club professional. So that is our own triumvirate. And I think it would be very nice for Ken to take you around this James Braid exhibition.
This is James Braid's showroom and workshop. This is the building that we're standing in at the moment. From the outside, it looks very much as it would have done in James Braid's day. James Braid employed 6 club makers, so there really was a bit of a mass production line going on in this building. The early James Braid clubs can usually be spotted by the wording on the back. If it says James Braid, Walton Heath, near Epsom, it's one of his earlier clubs. After James Braid started winning his championships, the words near Epsom were not required. The golfing world knew exactly where Walton Heath was. In these days, James Braid would have played a lot of golf. He would have made many golf clubs. He then became a golf course architect. He was clearly a very busy man, and this just shows the early days of club making at the Vice here. Nearly always worked with chisels, with hand saws, with files. Nothing like the present marketing these days in golf clubs. The door that James Braid is seen entering here is still the same original door that we've just walked through. This is very much showing how James Braid would have really masterminded a club-making operation very many years ago. There was a well-known saying about James Braid. Many members of the club used to say, nobody could ever be as wise as James Braid looked. I think looking at that photograph, you know exactly what they meant.
There's much more on Golfing Country. We'll be right back.
I'm Ken MACPHERSON, Walton Heath professional. Welcome to the James Braid exhibition. We have here a photograph of James Braid in his Highland uniform. It's one of the more unusual photographs of James Braid. Many photographs of him playing golf and possibly sitting around the clubhouse, but this is James Braid looking like the perfect Scotsman, and proud of it. Many of you will be familiar with Muirfield, the home of many great Open Championships. This is James Braid receiving the Open Championship trophy in 1901. A fascinating photograph, this. Look at one of the world's early tented villages. Is that similar to these days of the Open Championship or the Ryder Cup? I think not, but this is possibly where it all started. We've had many great golfers. We've had many great golf course architects. James Braid clearly was both. He was also, as we've just said, one of the world's great club makers. So what a career he had. He was just such an expert in so many different ways. These photographs show Walton Heath in its early days. Very, very few trees. This was from a series of postcards which were available in the local shop in the village. James Braid at his beloved Walton Heath. Out in the open spaces, Walton Heath in these days was a sea of heather with fairways mown through that area. Very few trees. something that James Braid liked about Walton Heath. It reminded him of his homeland in Scotland. I think this shows just what sort of a man James Braid was. I think many people know of his ability as a golfer, but this just shows the man that James Braid was and how highly he was regarded. His golfing achievements: profession at Walton Heath Golf Club from 1904 to 1950. Made an honorary life member of the club in 1921. Now, this was a time when many professionals were still considered to be almost glorified caddies, and not many golf professionals were even allowed to move in the clubhouse. To become a director of his own golf club in 1941, that really is quite an achievement. Founder member and first captain of the Professional Golfers Association, and honorary member of the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St Andrews in 1950. Really something almost unknown in these days. This photograph shows James Braid very late in his life, sheltering under the umbrella with his waterproofs on, muffs round his fingers. He's doing the starting for a visiting party coming to Walton Heath. 5 times Open champion, a great club maker, one of the world's great golf course architects, yet still putting the service to others more than his own comfort. I suspect he must have been on his way back to the clubhouse for something just after going through all that. We have a scorecard here showing James Braid having completed the new course in 64 shots, age 68. On his 78th birthday, he held the old course in 74. He had his 18th hole in one, age 79. He had a 2 at every hole on both courses. James Braid, on the first tee on his 80th birthday, he had the tradition of breaking his age, and this continued until his 80th birthday, when he failed to do so by 1 shot. We have it in good authority. The conditions were not good on that day. Simply the fact that it was the 6th of February possibly tells you everything about what the conditions were likely to be. Clearly, again, he's dressed up, trying to safeguard himself against the cold. Unfortunately, he never had the chance to play on his 81st birthday. On the 27th of November 1950, he died following an operation, and he's buried in St Peter's Churchyard, Walton on the Hill. James Braid's grave is tended by the golf club, and we always have heather on James Braid's grave. We just think that's the most appropriate way to celebrate the life of the most wonderful man. James Braid's grave is in St Peter's Churchyard in the village of Walton on the Hill, literally 300 yards from the first tee at Walton Heath. Dorothy did say I had her full permission to look after the grave, but under no circumstances should James Braid's grave look any different to any other grave in the churchyard. James Braid was a man of the village, and it would have broken his heart for him to feel that he was being made more important than any of the other fellow villagers. And it's always a privilege to come up here and for us all just to say thank you to James Braid and for everything which he did for Walton Heath Golf Club.
Some of the best James Braid golf courses are here in Highland, and Visit Scotland has put together a series that you will really, truly enjoy. This one is the Highlands Trail, but we will be featuring some of the others in the future. We invite you to Scotland and enjoy the talent of James Braid.